Let's talk about the new Silvia Moreno-Garcia book. Hello, fellow book nerds. This is Gabby, and today we are discussing The Daughter of Doctor Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is Silvia Moreno-Garcia's newest release, and I have recently read all of her books that were in my library, which means 5. I read 5 of her books, pretty much all the most popular ones, and I had a video, so if you want to check it out, do check it out. But I did all of that because I got an arc of Daughter of Doctor Moreau. It's quite a tongue twister, or maybe I just can't speak. I got an arc, which means an early review copy, so I thought, let's embrace this and actually read all of her books, and I had a lot of fun. It was very positive reviews, most of them. I gave 3 5-stars. To say I had high expectations coming into this one would be not an overstatement. It would be very accurate. I now consider Silvia Moreno-Garcia one of my all-time favorite authors. I will buy all of her new releases. I think she's a brilliant writer. So, I was hoping this would elevate everything. Because Mexican Gothic, Gods of Jade and Shadow, and The Beautiful Ones, but I think I said I like Mexican Gothic the most, then The Beautiful Ones, then Gods of Jade and Shadow, but they were really actually tied. They were tied for that first place. And I was like, I hope I find something that even exceeds them or lands right there with them in that first slot. Did I succeed? We shall see. Let's talk about the book. But first, the plot. So we're 19th century Mexico, 1870 something, I think, 77. We follow the life of a young girl who is a daughter of a doctor, and they live on this secluded island that's sponsored by this rich man, and she's always been very sheltered and always only basically been on this island for her whole life. But the reason they're on this island is because her father is a doctor. I would call him a mad scientist, really, and he does a lot of experiments that are sponsored by this rich man who basically wants human animal hybrids that have the animalistic characteristics of being strong and durable and all that, but also have opposable forms and faults and can be used as workers. So that's the noble aim of this man, to get more workers, because the Indians are not panning out. So Carlota is the daughter of Dr. Moreau, and when she was young, she had this affliction and an illness, and that's kind of what spurred her father's crazy experiments to find a cure, and he did manage to find a cure that helps her live a normal, happy life. And we open the book when she's 14 years old, and there's a new addition to the island. So Montgomery is 29-year-old divorcee, alcoholic, who's in the debt of this guy that's financing the whole island. So he decides to apply to be a new kind of handyman and overseer of the property, because they need, someone to take care of the hybrids, someone to go hunting, get new jaguars for the crazy experiments, that kind of stuff. So he joins this island to take this position. And then we fast forward 6 years, and that's kind of where the main plot of the book is taking place. So this book is a retelling, or loosely inspired retelling, of The Island of Doctor Moreau, which I've never read. So I think that's the gist of the synopsis. Hopefully it gave you an idea of what's up. Let's get into it. So first, as always, writing. Writing with Silvia Moreno-Garcia, even in Velvet Was the Night, which was the book I enjoyed least, has never been a problem because she is a brilliant writer. It's just really beautiful and really makes you understand the lushness of the environment. I mean, this beautiful island, the way Carlota really loves it as well, and the way she thinks about it, and it's all really rich and beautiful. And my favorite thing about Silvia Moreno-Garcia's books is how much there's love for Mexico and how you explore Mexico through her perspective, and with her beautiful writing, she really brings it in together. So I've really loved that about her, and it's no different here. I have absolutely no complaints about the writing. Like I said, it's been amazing in every project I've read from her. Now let's move on to plot. So kind of how the vibes and what I kept thinking about, what was in my mind the whole time I was reading this book, was that this is a mix between Spy Kids 2 and Barbie as the Island Princess. And you will not convince me otherwise. So the Spy Kids 2 is because the island, I don't know if you ever watched that movie, like it was a bit of a fever dream, but I was obsessed with Spy Kids when I was a kid. In that there's the Island of Lost Dreams. I don't know if it has an official name in the movie, but that's the movie title of the movie. So basically there's this like mad scientist that's been living on the island for like God knows how many years, and he creates these like hybrids of different animals. So you'll have like giraffe with like monkey, I don't know, like weird hybrids. Barbie as the island princess, I don't know why, but it's just the way Carlotta talked about her upbringing, how she would have more freedom than the ladies did at that time, and how she dressed, you know, in just like very casual like chemises that would like totally be super inappropriate, but she just like lives on this island, and she's like friends with the animals, even though in this one animals are like the hybrids so they can talk and stuff. But that really gave me the vibes of the Island Princess movie, if you ever seen that, because it's about a girl who was kind of shipwrecked on this abandoned island and made friends with all these animals. So those are the vibes. So I don't know what that'll tell you, but like a little bit more horror. Like take those two kids movies and make it horrific and adult. That's basically it. But I do think that the plot and the setting worked really well. The vibes were really good, like I said. I mean, they were weird, but they were good. And everything was really interesting. You have the intrigue, you have the surprise, you have the plot twist. You really feel like you're on this island with Carlotta, and it's very interesting, like cast of characters, which we'll talk about. But it was very, very interesting experience, and I think it worked on that like more literal level of like, this is happening, this is the plot, this is the events, and then also on the more metaphorical level, I guess, if you want to call it that, if you looked at this as a journey of self-discovery and finding your own place and that kind of stuff, I think it still works really well as well. It is supposedly horror. I wouldn't say it was, to me, as horrific as Mexican Gothic, which is also a horror novel. That one just felt more like it could happen to anyone, and it was really intimate and really scary that way. Whereas this one, it felt like, yeah, what he's doing, the doctor with his creations, is just against the laws of of nature, and the way he's treating them is really bad and all that. So you'll have had that element of horror, but I didn't even realize this was horror until I went on Goodreads, so maybe they mistagged it or something. Anyway, I would call it more like a little bit of thrilling element there, and like very like sci-fi body horror to an extent, but I wouldn't say it was as like scary or like horrific or disgusting as Mexican Gothic was, but no one can beat Mexican Gothic. So let's talk about characters. I really liked Carlotta. I think all of the Silvia Moreno-Garcia protagonists are quite distinct and different, and I think Carlotta, what I found really interesting and really cool about her was that she's this archetype of, you know, like very sheltered girl, grew up on this island and never seen the world. But for me, what felt like a twist, because I thought she would kind of take a different role, was the fact that she loved it. She didn't want to see the world. She didn't care. She was this dreamer, but she dreamed through books and reading and stories rather than like actually wanting to go see it herself. And she loved her home above all. And I thought that was pretty wonderful, because like usually it's the character that wants to like see what's out there and see the world and explore and all that. And there was a character like that, one of the hybrids, who was more like, I want to go see everything. I want to explore the world. We're stuck here. We need to go like see stuff. And she was just like, my greatest dream in life is to live here with my family and be happy, you know? And it was beautiful. And I really liked Carlotta. I thought she worked well. It's like a good example and exploration of an abusive parent relationship, not in like super villainous outright ways, you know? It like takes a while to understand how, with the level of manipulation and all that's been brewing, and I think that was really beautifully done. I really enjoyed that, and overall I have no complaints about Carlotta. Now we're on to Montgomery, who's our other POV character, and his POV is literally just a 35-year-old man who's an alcoholic, divorcee, and a nihilist, pining after a 20-year-old girl who he's known and lived with and seen grown since she was 14 years old. And I don't know if we're meant to think it's romantic, but there was a lot of creepiness, and it's not even once acknowledged by the character. Like, he's like, no, I shouldn't like her. I shouldn't even have these thoughts. But it's more because it's like, oh, this is like the master's daughter or whatever, and she's like young. Never like, oh, I've seen her when she was 14, which is a child. I know the times were different, but I don't know what it is up with Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Like, I've talked about this in my video where I read her for books, but like so many of them have problematic, extensive age gaps where the age gap is talked about like, oh my God, she's such a child. She's so young and innocent. Oh my God, let me put my... I'm not gonna finish that sentence, but I don't hate how it was done. I think overall, like, this is not a romance, so don't think this is a romance. Overall, it was executed well, and it was a beautiful relationship in a way. But reading from this grown-ass man pining and thinking about her figure and how beautiful she is and how he wants her, it was gross. I didn't need that in my head. I don't like it. Like, at least say, like, you're gross, bro. You're gross. That's that on Montgomery. Otherwise, I didn't hate him, but he did get on my nerves. He was just so grumpy because he was very hot-headed, very, like, possessive, but also protective, which was nice, but it felt more like possessiveness to me rather than protectiveness at times. And he just, he had a lot of room to grow, and he did grow, and I do appreciate that. Like, I can see that he's improved and grown. Then we have the doctor. So Dr. Moreau, or he's French, so I don't know if he's like Moreau, I don't know. Dr. Moreau, I don't know. Dr. Moreau, he's a very interesting character. I found him so repulsive and infuriating, but at the same time kind of compelling. And it was very interesting. Very interesting. Reading about him and what he's done, and then finding out more stuff about him, what really drives him. All of that was really interesting. I had a really good time. I think it was executed really well, and like his relationship again with Carlotta was really interesting. No, it's not like that at all, but like a very interesting dynamic of, you know, like Papa and 11 from Stranger Things or something. Like, it had layers. It was very interesting. So I enjoyed that. So he created these amalgamations of like animals with different traits and human traits and that kind of stuff. But then you read about, you know, how that impacted their bodies and their lifespans and all of that, and him being fully aware, like, what it's doing to those who survive, but then also kept going. That was like, ugh. And then you think, oh, maybe he has some redeemable creatures, but you very, very quickly learn, and by quickly, I mean, like, in the first chapter, or like first couple chapters, like the first part before the time jump, you learn that it's literally for profit, at least for the reason why the guy's paying for it, and it's just to have more workers. And you're like, all of that, and you're like, if people could, they would, you know, if they had technology to do that, they would do that. So it was disturbing, to say the least. The hybrids were very interesting. We have two like companions to Carlotta. They're like the same age as her, and they're friends, and that was really interesting. At first, it didn't even clock. It was such an interesting setup because at first we like read a chapter from Carlotta's perspective and we hear about them, but we never hear like descriptions, like physical descriptions. So it was like something that one of them like bit someone, and I was like, that's so weird. Like, this kid needs to stop biting, because I thought it was like a human kid. And then you have a chapter from Montgomery's perspective who's coming into it, and you then realize like what's happening and how they look, and that it's so interesting because like Carlotta grew up with it, so to her it was normal, whereas Montgomery or like us were new to it, so it's like the horror was like slowly unveiling. That was done really well. Overall, like they were really, really interesting. not that, I feel like they could have maybe had even a little bit more of a role. They can only come in as individual characters that I feel have agency later in the story, but it was really done. It was done really well. For villains, we have, well, I would say one kind of one-dimensional villain, but then we do have an interesting villain that's kind of unveiled throughout the story. I mean, it's obvious, but I'm not gonna say it. And that was very interesting how that was handled, and his relationship with Carlotta and how that was, and like how you kind of get fooled like she does for a while. It's very interesting, very interesting. I think the villains were done very well, and they were especially horrific because they kind of played on the themes and what people would be thinking of and problems they had of the time, and the racism was really, it was a lot. So now moving on to themes, because it kind of ties into that. So the backdrop of this book, it's a real conflict that happened in Mexico, and I'm gonna read to you a little bit from the afterword where she explains a little bit more about it, because I thought it was really interesting. The Daughter of Doctor Moreau takes place in Mexico against the backdrop of a real conflict. Because of its location and difficulty of maintaining contact with the rest of Mexico, Yucatan, although a peninsula, sometimes felt like an island. The Caste War of Yucatan, this is kind of the backdrop, began in 1847 and lasted more than 5 decades. The native Maya people of the peninsula rose against the Mexican, European descended, and mixed population. So there's a lot of like conflict about the workers. So they used to employ Native American people, they used to employ Black people, and now they talk about like the cost of that and like importing like Chinese and Korean laborers, and then like Russian laborers or Ukrainian or something, I don't know, like somewhere from the Eastern Europe, I think they talked about. And that was a very interesting backdrop to this whole thing. You will always learn something about Mexico with Silvia Moreno-Garcia, so it's really fun learning about this conflict. Seeing the racism, and that was rough. It was a lot, but it was true to the time and like kind of what these people would have been motivated by, which I thought was really interesting. Then other themes include like growing up, coming to your own, getting your own strength, that kind of stuff. But then obviously like a really big theme and exploration was like playing God and kind of medical progress, but the price of it and kind of what's wrong, like ethics basically, which I thought was really interesting. I love those kinds of conversations. Overall, I think that it was a very interesting book that talked a lot about, like I said, ethics. You will learn something about Mexico, had very interesting character dynamics, and I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I loved it as much as I did Mexican Gothic or The Beautiful Ones or Gods of Jade and Shadow, mainly because I'm a romance hoe. I think that's what it is. Like, I've been trying to understand why I don't care as much about this one, because like I would say the plot is equally interesting, the characters are equally interesting. I enjoyed reading it, like I had a good time, and I would say it's a good book, like go read it. But I was like, why don't I feel the same like feral passion I did for the other books? And they had romances and I like romance. I don't know what to tell you. It's like there can be a really good story and you sprinkle some romance in it, and I'm gonna like it 10 times more, and I'm gonna go feral over it. And I don't even think all stories need a romance. Like, I don't think this should have been a romance, unless you change characters and this, like, the dynamics and stuff. Then, okay, you could have a completely different book and make it a romance, but this should not have been a romance. It wasn't a romance, and, like, that's a good thing, but I'm not gonna go feral. I only go feral for romances. I'm sorry. I love fantasy and sci-fi, but then you just add a little bit of a sprinkle and make it like angsty, and I'm gonna eat it up. I guess this is my final thoughts. I gave it like 3.5, 4 stars, I would say. I think 4 stars is fair. It was really good. It's just, again, I think I wanted to feel the same insatiable energy I did, and I didn't. But that's on me. That's not on the book. The book was as good as it could have been, I think. I mean, maybe slightly less pining over, young people from people that seen them grow up. But whatever, you do what you do, and still no gays. So Silvia Moreno-Garcia, you need to step it up. There was like so much space for it. I don't get it. Anyway, let me know what you thought about Daughter of Doctor Moreau. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you think my review makes any kind of sense? Is it all groovy? Like, what are you feeling? Like, tell me what you're feeling. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, if you could comment, like, and subscribe, I really, really appreciate it. It really helps me out. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!